Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Today I have to make a very unfortunate video about the resin experiment. I've thought about it a lot, and the way that the current experiment is going is just not going to work. I must redo the whole thing to make it more streamlined and less convoluted. I'll be making a lot of adjustments to the point where it's basically just a complete rework of the project. The first revision is that it's not going to be 100,000 resin or 50,000 resin, but 60,000 resin. Additionally, I have realized that I must upgrade every artifact with a crit stat on it. In my previous video, I only leveled the Thundering Fury artifacts and didn't follow these guidelines. So essentially, and unfortunately, all the data from the previous video is null and void. I'd also like to be transparent and say this is not the first time the experiment has failed. I previously had data and recordings for the Peak of Vindigar domain that was 5,000 resin. However, I didn't properly collect the data for that trial, so I had to nullify it and the video idea was completely destroyed. And this was a few months ago. But this is not where it ends. Oh no. I actually had this project/video idea half a year ago and started collecting data in the Viridescent Veneer domain. But at that time, the experiment was not well thought out enough and the project fell face first. So now I have failed to do this experiment successfully 3 times, and I've wasted approximately 15,000 resin and 3 months of my life. But this is not to say that I'm giving up. What I'm trying to say is that science in projects like these, even my YouTube channel as a whole, is a lot of trial and error. Eventually I will succeed, but it's going to take time, patience, and a lot of mistakes. I have thought about this yet again a great deal, and this is the revised experiment adjustments. I'll just list off my bullet points of adjustments that I'd like to make. We'll be testing 1 year's worth of artifacts, or 60,000 resin. To come to the total of 60,000 resin, we'll do a domain trial for a month or spend 5,000 resin on a domain. Each domain trial and video will cover a different domain. After a domain trial is over, I'll level the artifacts from both sets. I will only level artifacts that have both crit rate and crit damage. If an artifact has both crit rate and crit damage on its substats at level 4, then I'll level it up to level 20 no matter what. For circlets, I will only level circlets that have a crit main stat and a crit substat at level 4, and then take them to level 20 no matter what. Previously, in my experiment, I was going to create hypothetical characters so that we could properly apply this data by using this and concluding with a weapon system of using Blackcliff or BP weapons and all these other systems that made this thing way too complicated. What is most important is how we can apply the data that we get. This project will be determining in how much resin can we expect how much of a specific tier of artifacts from S to D tier. The rankings for how good an artifact is will use my previous crit value system. We'll be able to see how many S, A, B, C, and D tier artifacts we get on average when we spend 5,000 resin. We'll also be able to see if we can achieve a good complete set of artifacts, not just individual artifacts. In order to achieve a full set of good artifacts, the average rating of the set of artifacts must be equal to at least B tier. So for example, if we find after a 5,000 resin trial has concluded that on average within 5,000 resin spent, we got at least 1 A tier flower, 1 A tier feather, 1 B tier timepiece, 1 B tier goblet, and 1 C tier circlet, then the average of the entire set within 5,000 resin is a B tier, and we get a good complete set out of those artifacts from that domain. Basically, this means that we'll be able to take the average data information from each individual artifact piece section and look at the whole picture from a particular trial to see if the combined artifact pieces can actually give us a good set of artifacts. And once we do all 12 trials, we'll be able to see on average how often we are able to get a complete good set of artifacts when we spend 5,000 resin. The only downside to this strategy is that we won't be effectively measuring goblets since they tend to be the off piece. We'll be able to see on average how often you get a good goblet with elemental damage bonus though. Furthermore, thanks to a comment and some thinking of my own, I have come to realize there is enough characters in the game that benefit greatly from energy recharge and elemental mastery. So I'm making a bit of a compromise. I'll be measuring timepieces that grant the main stats of attack percent, elemental mastery, and energy recharge and add them to the pool for each separate category. But I will be excluding HP and defense timepieces. This is because most characters scale with attack, and thanks to Dendro, a lot more characters scale with EM. Energy recharge is also a lot more common thanks to Emblem of Severed Fate. In comparison, there are not a ton of DPS characters that scale with HP and defense. With that being said, this artifact project is not very applicable to characters that use an HP or defense timepiece, don't scale with crit, or are getting crit stats from external sources besides artifacts like Cryo Resonance or some other passive effect like Kaching's passive that gives her extra crit after her ult. That makes scaling crit damage way more effective. The too long didn't watch is that this experiment is going to be much more streamlined and much easier to understand for you guys when you get the Google spreadsheet. When someone asks you, where did you get that number from, you'll be able to explain it a lot more easily. It's also just a better way to measure the artifacts in general, and it makes more sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't be spending all this effort to do things like this. One more thing before you go, please leave your feedback in the comment section below and tell me what you think. If you think there's a problem, tell me about it before it's too late. Also, 60,000 resin experiment is kind of a mouthful. Let me know if you guys have any ideas of what to name this thing. Something cool like the Manhattan Project. I also just want to say that the last video I put out was complete crap and not entertaining enough, and that the next video, Domain Trial, will be a more entertaining and different video. Sub and like if you enjoyed to keep up with this series or any of my other series, and remember to take care and have a pleasant day.